The emergency alert blared through the command center of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. Red lights flashed across the polished metal walls as personnel rushed to their stations. Admiral James Thorne strode purposefully across the room, his weathered face set in a grim expression. 40 years of military service had taught him that unexpected alerts rarely brought good news. "Report," he commanded, as he reached the central communication hub. Lieutenant Patel's fingers flew across the holographic display. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from deep space. It's not using any known diplomatic channels. The signal pattern suggests extreme urgency." Thorne nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a thin, pale figure with large, silvery eyes that took up nearly half its face. The alien's skin had a faint blue glow, and what appeared to be delicate gill-like structures pulsed rapidly at its neck. Even to humans unfamiliar with this species, the creature's body language screamed distress. "This is Ambassador Eileen of the Lumari Federation," the alien spoke, its voice translated through the ship's AI. "We send this message to all spacefaring civilizations. Our worlds burn. Our people die. We beg for help." The message continued, showing scenes of destruction that made even the battle-hardened officers in the room shift uncomfortably. Massive black ships with jagged edges moved through space, firing weapons that seemed to tear apart not just matter but space itself. Peaceful cities with towering crystal spires crumbled. The gentle, luminescent Lumari fell by the thousands. The Void Armada came without warning. Ambassador Elin continued. "We had no defenses. We have no concept of warfare in our history. We cannot fight. Please, anyone who receives this message, help us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in silence. Commander Rogers, Thorne's second-in-command, was the first to speak. "The Lumari Federation spans over 20 star systems in the Orion Arm. They're known for their advanced art and philosophy, no military to speak of." "And the attackers?" Thorne asked. "The Void Armada is unknown to us," Rogers replied. "But based on the weapon signatures, they're significantly more advanced than our current technology." Thorne's jaw tightened. "Get me the Security Council. Now." 2 hours later, Admiral Thorne stood before the United Earth Security Council. The 12 representatives from Earth's major regions watched with varying expressions as he replayed the Lumari distress call. "The situation is clear," Thorne concluded as the screen darkened. "A peaceful civilization faces extinction. They've asked for our help." Council Representative Garcia frowned. "Admiral, while the situation is unfortunate, humanity has only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. We have no treaties with the Lumari. This is not our fight." "With respect," Thorne replied. "If we ignore this, we set a precedent. Today it's the Lumari. Tomorrow it could be us." "The Void Armada's technology is beyond ours," Representative Wong pointed out. "Intervention would put our own people at risk." Thorne stepped forward, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Technology isn't everything. The Lumari evolved on what xenobiologists call paradise worlds, planets with stable climates, minimal predators, and abundant resources. Their biology reflects this. They have no natural defenses, no evolutionary experience with conflict." He pressed a button, bringing up an image of Earth. "We evolved here, on what the galactic community calls a death world. Extreme temperature variations, thousands of predator species, natural disasters, diseases, poisons. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years, and we survived." The room grew quiet as Thorne continued. "Humanity has endured ice ages and plagues. We've survived by being adaptable, tenacious, and yes, sometimes violent when necessary. The Lumari can't fight this war. We can. You're suggesting we deploy our battle fleet?" Representative Okafor asked, leaning forward. "Based on one distress call?" "I'm suggesting we do what humans have always done," Thorne replied. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves." The debate raged for hours. Some council members worried about the risks of alien conflict. Others questioned whether Earth's relatively small fleet could make a difference against such advanced aggressors. A few voiced concern about the economic impact of a military deployment so far from home. As the arguments continued, Lieutenant Patel entered the chamber and whispered something to Thorne. His face darkened. "Council members," he interrupted. "We've just received a second transmission. The Lumari world of Alaris has fallen. Population 8 billion. There were no survivors." Silence fell over the room. Representative Lee, who had been among the strongest voices against intervention, slowly stood. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about her childhood in a small village. When invaders came, neighboring towns looked away, hoping to avoid the same fate." She paused. Every village fell one by one. Only when they united did they drive the invaders back. She looked around the room. "I was against this intervention. I was wrong." One by one, the other representatives nodded in agreement. "Very well," said the council chair. "Admiral Thorne, you have your authorization. How soon can the fleet deploy?" Thorne's lips curved in a slight smile. "The first and third battle groups have been on standby alert since we received the first transmission. They can depart within 12 hours. Representative Garcia raised an eyebrow. "You were that confident of our decision?" "Not confident," Thorne replied. "Hopeful. Humanity has fought itself for most of its history. But whenever we've faced a common threat, we've stood together." He straightened his uniform. "It's time to show the galaxy what that means." The launch bay of Earth's orbital shipyard was a hive of activity. Supply shuttles darted between massive warships, loading the final provisions and equipment. The UES Thunderbolt, Earth's flagship, dominated the center of the formation. Its hull bore the scars of previous conflicts, badges of honor in the eyes of its crew. On the observation deck, Admiral Thorne watched the preparations with Captain Ben Foster, who would command the Thunderbolt during the mission. 50 ships, Foster said quietly. "Our most experienced crews. A third of Earth's military strength." Thorne nodded. "It will have to be enough." "The Lumari ambassador is on board," Foster reported. "He seems overwhelmed." "Wouldn't you be?" Thorne asked. "His people face extinction, and their only hope is a species they've never met, from a planet so harsh they would die within hours of setting foot on it." Foster checked his tablet as a notification appeared. "All ships report ready, Admiral." Thorne took a deep breath, looking out at the fleet one last time. Ships built to defend Earth would now venture farther into the galaxy than any human military force in history. "Send the order, Captain," he said finally. "Operation Sanctuary is a go." Throughout the fleet, engines flared to life. One by one, the massive warships broke formation and accelerated toward the jump point that would take them. To Lumari space, the Deathworlders were deploying. The journey to Lumari space took 7 days at maximum warp. 7 days during which Commander Alex Reed prepared for humanity's first official diplomatic meeting with the Lumari High Council. As the fleet's chief diplomatic officer, the responsibility of this initial contact weighed heavily on Reed's shoulders. "How do I look?" Reed asked, adjusting the collar of the formal dress uniform. Lieutenant Maya Kim, Reed's assistant, gave an approving nod. "Professional, authoritative, but not threatening." "Not threatening to humans, maybe," Reed said, "but to a species that has no concept of warfare. I might as well be wearing a monster costume." The UES Thunderbolt dropped out of warp at the edge of the Lumari home system. Through the ship's viewports, the crew got their first glimpse of Lumaria Prime. Unlike Earth's blue and white marble appearance, this world shimmered with iridescent purples and greens, its atmosphere reflecting the light of its binary suns. "It's beautiful," Captain Foster said from the command chair. Ambassador Elin stood nearby, his thin frame seeming even more fragile under the bright lights of the bridge. "It was beautiful," he corrected softly, "before the void came." The evidence of attack was clear as the fleet moved closer. Orbital platforms lay in ruins. The wreckage of delicate Lumari ships drifted lifelessly, but the planet itself appeared intact, spared the total destruction that had befallen other worlds. "The Void Armada attacked our defenses and left," Elin explained. "We believe they plan to return to finish what they started." Foster turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Wilson, establish a defense perimeter. I want early warning systems at every approach vector. Yes, sir, Wilson replied, already coordinating with the other ships in the fleet. Reed and Ambassador Elin prepared to shuttle down to the surface for the meeting with the Lumari High Council. Captain Foster and Lieutenant Wilson would accompany them, along with a small security detail, standard procedure, though Reed worried how the Lumari would perceive armed humans. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Reed marveled at the alien landscape below. Vast cities spread across the surface, their architecture flowing like frozen liquid, towers and domes connected by graceful arches. No sharp edges, no right angles, everything curved and blended with the natural environment. Your cities, Reed said. They're incredible. Elin's silver eyes blinked slowly. We build to complement, never to dominate. Your human settlements look very different, I understand. Reed thought of Earth's angular skyscrapers, concrete barriers, and defensive walls, architecture shaped by thousands of years of protecting ourselves from each other. Yes, Reed admitted. Very different. The shuttle landed in a vast plaza at the center of the capital city. A gathering of Lumari officials waited, their slender bodies adorned with flowing garments that seemed to change color with each movement. Behind them stood thousands of ordinary citizens watching with large, curious eyes. The human delegation stepped out, and a visible ripple of reaction passed through the crowd. Some Lumari stepped back, others leaned forward in fascination. Reed heard whispers translated through the earpiece, so dense. Look at their muscles. Are those battle scars? The High Council of the Lumari consisted of 7 elders, distinguished by the more pronounced glow of their skin. They greeted the humans with formal bows, which Reed and the team returned. We welcome you to Lumaria Prime, the head counselor said, though we wish it were under better circumstances. The meeting moved to a grand chamber with walls of living crystal that hummed with soft music. As the humans sat at the offered seats, Reed noticed the furniture shifting slightly to accommodate their heavier frames. Your distress call reached Earth 7 standard days ago, Reed began. The United Earth Defense Force has deployed 50 warships to assist you against the Void Armada. The council members exchanged glances. Warships, one repeated, as if testing an unfamiliar word. Vessels designed specifically for conflict? Yes, Captain Foster confirmed. Our ships are equipped with defensive and offensive capabilities. A Lumari scientist stepped forward, a device in her delicate hands. With your permission, we would like to take biological readings. Our scanners detected anomalies we cannot explain. Reed nodded consent, and the scientist waved her device over the humans. The readings made her eyes widen. Incredible, she whispered. Your skeletal density is 4 times ours. Your muscle fibers can withstand forces that would tear our bodies apart. And these, she pointed to a small scar on Wilson's hand. Evidence of previous damage completely healed? Wilson looked down at the old knife wound. Yes, from a training accident years ago. The scientist turned to the council in excitement. They regenerate, and their skin, it's nearly a full millimeter thick. The head counselor leaned forward. Is this common among your kind? Reed nodded. All humans have these characteristics. Our world shaped us to be durable. And to fight, Foster added. Earth's history is filled with conflict. We've learned from it, evolved because of it. A silence fell over the chamber as the Lumari processed this information. Finally, the head counselor spoke again. We have existed for over 10,000 years, without the concept of warfare. When the Void Armada attacked, we had no defense, no understanding of how to respond. Their violence was incomprehensible to us. Lieutenant Wilson had been studying data on his tablet. He looked up. Based on the attack patterns and the intelligence Ambassador Elin provided, we believe the Void Armada will target your colony world of New Dawn next. The council members visibly paled, their skin losing its luminescence. New Dawn holds 3 million of our people, one said, mostly scientists and artists. There are no defenses. Wilson stood and projected a tactical display in the center of the room. With your permission, we can position our fleet here, at the jump point leading to New Dawn. If the Void Armada follows their established pattern, they'll emerge at this location. The Lumari stared at the display, watching as Wilson demonstrated the proposed defensive formation. You intend to engage them directly? A council member asked, sounding both horrified and fascinated. That's what we came here to do, Foster replied simply. As the meeting continued, more Lumari gathered to observe the humans. Medical experts marveled at human biology. Historians recorded every word. Children peered from behind pillars, both frightened and curious about these strange, solid beings from a world they could barely imagine. One young Lumari approached Reed during a break, reaching out hesitantly before pulling back. It's okay, Reed said gently. You can touch my hand if you want. The child carefully placed its glowing fingers on Reed's palm, then quickly pulled back in surprise. You're warm, the child said. And heavy. Reed smiled. On my world we need to be. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, the head counselor approached Reed privately. Your people evolved on what we would consider a nightmare world, the counselor said. Extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, constant threats. Yet instead of becoming monsters, you became protectors. This is unexpected. Reed considered. This. Humans have done terrible things throughout our history. We've fought countless wars against each other. But we've also learned that strength means nothing if not used to defend those who need protection. The counselor's silver eyes studied Reed's face. The Void believes all life should serve them or perish. They have never encountered resistance. What will they make of you, I wonder? Reed's expression hardened slightly. They're about to find out. As the shuttle rose from the surface, Reed watched the glittering cities of Lumaria Prime grow smaller below. The contrast between the peaceful Lumari and the humans couldn't be more stark. Yet somehow across the gulf of evolution and experience they had found common ground. The fleet was already moving into position when they returned to the Thunderbolt. Lieutenant Wilson's team had developed a defensive strategy, and Captain Foster had authorized battle preparations. The hunt was on. The Deathworlders were going to war. The bridge of the UES Thunderbolt hummed with quiet tension. Captain Foster sat in the command chair, his posture relaxed but alert as he studied the tactical display. Around him, the crew worked with practiced efficiency, each motion precise, each communication brief and clear. Final ship reporting in position, Captain, Lieutenant Wilson announced from the tactical station. The fleet is ready. Foster nodded. And our Lumari observers? Settled in the observation deck, Commander Reed replied. Though settled might be generous, they seem unsettled by our battle preparations. A small smile touched Foster's lips. Can't blame them. Their species never developed the concept of warfare. Watching us prepare for battle must be like watching an alien ritual. The human fleet had taken position near the jump point to New Dawn Colony, arranged in a formation that Lieutenant Wilson had designed specifically for this encounter. The fastest ships formed the outer perimeter while the heaviest warships, including the Thunderbolt, waited at strategic points within. Anything on long-range sensors? Foster asked. Nothing yet, sir, replied Ensign Parker from the sensor station. Wait. Her posture stiffened. Captain, I'm detecting spatial distortions consistent with multiple ships exiting warp. Bearing 047, range 300,000 kilometers. Foster leaned forward. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Throughout the ship, alarm lights flashed as crew members moved to their positions. The atmosphere changed instantly from alert readiness to focused intensity. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Black shapes emerged, jagged and angular, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The Void Armada had arrived. 23 enemy vessels detected, Wilson reported, his voice steady. Configuration matches Ambassador Elan's data. Their weapons are powering up. Foster activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Captain Foster. Maintain formation and hold fire until my command. Let them make the first move. The Void ships moved forward in a wedge formation, apparently unconcerned about the human fleet blocking their path. Their confidence was understandable. They had conquered countless worlds without serious resistance. "They're hailing us," Commander Reed announced. Foster straightened his uniform. On screen, the view screen changed to show the interior of the late Void vessel. The being that appeared made several crew members inhale sharply. Unlike the graceful, luminescent Lumari, the Void commander was a massive figure with dark, chitinous plating covering its body. Multiple yellow eyes gleamed from a face that seemed designed to inspire fear. "Unknown vessels." The Void commander's harsh voice came through the translator. "You occupy our conquest path. Remove yourselves or be destroyed." Foster stood facing the screen calmly. "This is Captain Ben Foster of the United Earth Defense Force. The Lumari worlds are under our protection. Turn your fleet around and leave this sector." The Void commander's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been surprise or amusement. "You defend the weaklings? Interesting. What species are you?" "Human," Foster replied simply. "Humans." The word seemed to taste strange to the alien. "We have not encountered your kind before. You appear to possess some rudimentary technology. Your ships, however, are insignificant compared to ours. This is your final warning." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Well, that was diplomatic," Lieutenant Rodriguez muttered from her station. Foster returned to his chair. "They've never faced resistance before. They don't know what to make of us." He tapped his command console. "All ships, prepare to execute. Maneuver Theta on my mark." The Void ships suddenly accelerated, energy weapons charging along their hulls. "They're targeting the UES Dauntless," Wilson reported. "Now," Foster ordered. The human fleet burst into coordinated motion. Instead of holding position as the Void clearly expected, the ships executed a complex three-dimensional maneuver that Wilson had designed. The Dauntless dropped sharply while two smaller, faster vessels moved to flank the lead Void ship. The Void weapons fired and hit empty space where the Dauntless had been moments before. "Return fire," Foster commanded. "All ships, weapons free." The human fleet unleashed its first volley. Railgun projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed slammed into the Void ships' hulls. Particle beams and missiles followed in a carefully orchestrated attack pattern. On the observation deck, the Lumari witnesses watched in stunned silence. They had never seen organized violence on this scale before. The concept of strategy, of deliberately causing harm to achieve a goal, was alien to their peaceful evolution. "They're dancing," one Lumari scientist whispered, watching the human ships move in their complex patterns. Ambassador Elin shook his head slowly. "Not dancing. Hunting." Back on the bridge, Foster watched as the Void ships attempted to regroup. Their initial confidence had clearly been shaken by the effectiveness of the human attack. "3 enemy vessels showing significant damage," Wilson reported. "They're attempting to adjust their formation to counter our movements." Foster nodded. "They learn quickly." "Lieutenant Rodriguez, signal the Intrepid battle group to begin Phase 2. 4 human ships broke from the main formation, accelerating toward the largest Void vessel. "Sir," Wilson said. "The enemy flagship is charging what appears to be their main weapon system. Energy readings are off the charts." "As expected," Foster replied. "Lieutenant Martinez, is your team ready?" Through the communication channel, Lieutenant Isabella Martinez's voice came through clearly from the Intrepid. "Boarding team ready, Captain. Just get us close enough." The Void flagship fired its main weapon, a beam of energy that seemed to distort the very fabric of space. It cut through the Void, heading directly toward the Thunderbolt. "Evasive action," Foster ordered. The massive ship lurched as its engines fired at maximum thrust, barely avoiding the devastating beam. Even the near miss caused power fluctuations throughout the vessel. "That was close," Reed muttered. Foster's expression remained focused. "Now, Martinez, go." The Intrepid and its escort vessels drove straight toward the Void flagship, weaving through enemy fire. Small black pods ejected from the Intrepid's launch bays, rocketing toward the enemy vessel. Inside one of those pods, Lieutenant Martinez and her team of 12 Marines braced for impact. These were Earth's elite soldiers, trained for the most dangerous missions. Their specialized armor gleamed dully in the pod's dim lighting. "Remember," Martinez told her team, "we need to capture their command center intact. Weapons on stun, unless absolutely necessary." The pod slammed into the hull of the Void flagship, cutting through the outer armor with specialized drills. As soon as they breached the interior, Martinez led her team through the opening. They encountered Void crew immediately, massive armored beings who clearly hadn't expected boarders. The surprise gave the humans a crucial advantage. Martinez's team moved with coordinated precision, stunning Void crew members before they could mount an effective defense. Back on the Thunderbolt, Foster watched the battle unfold. The human fleet had suffered damage, but they were inflicting far more than they received. The Void ship's movements had become increasingly erratic as they faced an enemy that could actually fight back. "Captain," Reed said suddenly, "3 Void ships are breaking formation. They appear to be retreating." Foster raised an eyebrow. "Already?" "Confirmed," Wilson added. "They're powering up their warp drives." On the main communication channel, Martinez's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of combat. "Command center secured, Captain. We've captured the Void commander." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly silenced by Foster's raised hand. "Stay focused," he reminded them. "This battle isn't over." But within minutes it became clear that the Void Armada was indeed retreating. More ships broke formation, following the first 3 into warp. Those 2 damaged to escape were abandoned by their comrades. "They're running," Wilson said, disbelief in his voice. "I didn't expect them to break so quickly." Foster's expression was grim. They've never faced resistance before. Their entire strategy was based on overwhelming helpless opponents. He turned to Reed. "Inform our Lumari observers that the immediate threat has been neutralized." As the last Void ships disappeared into warp, a strange silence fell over the bridge. The human crew looked at each other, many seeming surprised by their victory. "Casualties?" Foster asked quietly. 17 confirmed dead across the fleet, Wilson reported. 42 injured. The UES Valiant took heavy damage but remains operational. Foster closed his eyes briefly. Even in victory, there was a cost. Each of those 17 had been someone's friend, someone's family. "Captain," Reed said, breaking the moment of silence, "the Lumari are requesting permission to come to the bridge." Foster nodded. "Granted." When Ambassador Elin and 3 other Lumari entered the bridge, their expressions were difficult to read. They moved hesitantly, looking around at the humans with new eyes. "You fought for us," Elin said simply. "You died for us." Foster stood to face them. "That's what allies do." "We have captured one of their commanders," Reed added. "We may be able to learn valuable intelligence from them." The Lumari exchanged glances. "You are not what we expected," Elin said finally. "Your capacity for violence frightened us, but now we see it can protect as well as destroy." Foster looked out at the view screen where the stars shone. Admiral Thorne stood before the holographic display in the Thunderbolt's war room, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the tactical map. Around the table, human officers and a small group of Lumari representatives watched as he outlined his plan. "Defense is no longer enough," Thorne stated, his deep voice filling the room. "The Void Armada retreats only to regroup. If we remain reactive, they'll pick the time and place of the next attack. We need to take the initiative." The holographic display shifted, showing a 3-dimensional map of nearby star systems. Red markers indicated confirmed Void-controlled territories, while blue showed Lumari worlds. "We've analyzed the data from the captured Void commander," Thorne continued. "Their empire spans 12 star systems in this sector. They've been expanding methodically, conquering species unable to resist them. The Lumari were simply next on their list." Ambassador Elin stepped forward, his luminescent skin pulsing with emotion. "Admiral, my people are grateful for your protection, but what you're suggesting, taking the battle to void territory. This is beyond what we asked of you. Thorne's expression remained firm. Ambassador, the void won't stop. Their commander made that clear during interrogation. They see your people as resources to be harvested, your worlds as territories to be claimed. The only language they understand is strength. Captain Foster, standing nearby, added, "We've won one battle, but we've only faced a fraction of their fleet. Intelligence suggests they're marshaling forces for a major assault." In the corner of the room, Chief Engineer Mark Davis had been quietly listening. Unlike the military officers with their crisp uniforms and formal posture, Davis had the relaxed demeanor of someone more comfortable with machines than protocols. He cleared his throat, drawing attention. "I've been working with the Lumari engineers," he said. "Their technology is different from ours, but not incompatible. Their ships have better sensors and more efficient power systems than anything we've developed. What they lack are weapons and defense systems." Thorne raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we upgrade Lumari vessels?" Davis nodded. "We can turn their science vessels and transports into a functional support fleet within weeks. Not warships, but they could provide vital tactical support." The Lumari representatives murmured among themselves, clearly conflicted. The concept of transforming their peaceful vessels into instruments of war challenged their deepest cultural values. "It goes against everything we believe," one Lumari scientist said softly. Thorne approached her with unexpected gentleness. "I understand. Truly. Humans once had societies that rejected violence entirely. But sometimes, to preserve peace, we must be willing to defend it." The war room fell silent as the Lumari conferred quietly. Finally, Ambassador Elin spoke. "We will provide 20 vessels for modification. And," he hesitated, "some of our people wish to volunteer to serve alongside your crews." This caused genuine surprise among the human officers. Commander Reed stepped forward. "Ambassador, with respect, your people have no combat training or experience." "Then we will learn," Elin replied simply. "This is our fight too." Thorne nodded, with approval. "Commander Reed, establish a training program for our Lumari volunteers. Keep it simple and focused on defensive operations." "Yes, sir," Reed replied, though uncertainty showed in her eyes. The meeting continued as they refined the battle plan. Lieutenant Wilson explained the strategy using the holographic display. "We'll strike here first." He indicated a star system at the edge of void territory. "Intelligence suggests it's one of their newer conquests, less fortified than their core worlds. If we liberate it quickly, it will give us a forward base and potentially valuable intelligence." "The combined fleet will move in 3 battle groups," Foster added. "The heaviest human warships will take the lead, with Lumari support, vessels providing sensor coverage and medical assistance." As the officers discussed tactical details, Engineer Davis pulled Admiral Thorne aside. "Sir, there's something else you should know. I've been analyzing the void weapons technology with the Lumari scientists. Their main weapon, the one that distorts space, it's not just destructive, it's efficient. They're harvesting energy from the planets they destroy." Thorne's expression darkened. "They're not just conquerors. They're parasites." "Yes, sir. And based on the energy signatures, they've destroyed dozens of worlds before reaching Lumari space." This information added urgency to their plans. Over the following days, the fleet transformed. Engineer Davis worked tirelessly alongside Lumari scientists, modifying their elegant vessels with human defense systems. The sight of sleek, crystalline Lumari ships now bristling with human railguns and shield generators was jarring, like delicate flowers suddenly growing thorns. On the training decks, Commander Reed oversaw the instruction of the first Lumari volunteers. Their physical fragility compared to humans was stark. They tired quickly and lacked the natural durability that Earth's gravity and harsh conditions had given humans. But they compensated with incredible spatial awareness and an unexpected determination. Again, Reed instructed a group of Lumari as they practiced emergency procedures. "If your section loses pressure, you have 8 seconds to reach an emergency shelter or get your helmet on." The Lumari trainee named Varen fumbled with the human-designed emergency helmet. his delicate fingers struggling with the latches designed for stronger hands. "I can't," he began, frustration evident. Reed stepped forward, adjusting the helmet. "Like this. Let momentum do the work, not strength." Varen tried again, this time successfully securing the helmet. "Better," Reed nodded. "Remember, in combat, you won't have time to think. These actions need to become instinct." Later in the officers' mess, Reed joined Foster and Wilson at a table. "How's the training going?" Foster asked. Reed sighed. "They're trying harder than I ever expected, but physically they're just not built for this. Their bones are like bird bones compared to ours. Light, hollow. One hard impact could shatter them." "Keep them on support duties," Foster advised. "Communications, sensors, medical." "That's the plan," Reed agreed. "Though some of them are insisting on more direct roles." Wilson looked up from his meal. "Can't blame them. It's their homes. We're fighting for." 3 days later, the combined human-Lumari fleet was ready. 50 human warships formed the core, now joined by 18 modified Lumari vessels. Admiral Thorne addressed the fleet from the Thunderbolt's bridge, his message transmitted to every ship. "Today we take the fight to the enemy," he stated, his voice firm and clear. "For too long the Void Armada has preyed upon peaceful worlds, believing themselves invincible. Today they learn otherwise." The fleet moved out in perfect formation, entering warp toward the first target. As the stars stretched into streaks of light, Engineer Davis stood on the Thunderbolt's observation deck alongside Varen and several other Lumari volunteers. "Are you afraid?" Varen asked him quietly. Davis considered the question. "Yes," he answered honestly. "Fear is natural before battle, but we don't let it control us." "My people have never known war," Varen said. "But we've never known friendship. With Deathworlders either. Perhaps both will save us." The journey to the target system took just under 2 days. When the fleet emerged from warp, they immediately detected Void activity, mining operations on 2 planets and a small defensive force of 7 ships. The Void vessels reacted with visible surprise to the arrival of the human Lumari fleet. Their response was disorganized, suggesting they had never expected to face an attack in their own territory. "All ships, battle formation Delta," Foster ordered. "Engage the enemy." The human warships surged forward while the Lumari vessels maintained their support positions. The battle was brief but intense. Without the element of surprise that had aided them at New Dawn, the humans faced the full force of Void weapons. Technology. 2 human destroyers suffered heavy damage, but the Void defenders were overwhelmed. Within hours, the system was secured. For the first time, a Void-controlled world had been liberated. On the surface of the main planet, human and Lumari teams discovered thousands of indigenous aliens held as slaves in mining operations. These beings, reptilian creatures with 4 arms and copper-colored scales, greeted their liberators with stunned disbelief. They had given up hope, Ambassador Elin reported after communicating with them. The Void conquered their world 3 years ago. Half their population was already processed for energy. Admiral Thorne's jaw tightened at this news. "Get them whatever medical help they need, and ask if any of them want to join our fight." As the fleet regrouped and prepared for their next target, news of the victory spread throughout Lumari space. The species that had never known war was learning a new emotion. Hope. The counteroffensive had begun. The emergency alert blared through the Thunderbolt's corridors, jolting Lieutenant Wilson from his brief rest period. He was on his feet and moving before fully awake, muscle memory taking over as he rushed toward the bridge. Throughout the ship, other crew members did the same, their movements quick but controlled. The past 3 weeks had been a blur of battles and brief victories. The combined human Lumari fleet had liberated 4 Void-controlled systems, freeing enslaved populations, and destroying Void mining operations. With each success, more former victims had joined their cause, transforming the fleet into a coalition of species united against the Void Armada. Wilson reached the bridge to find it already filled with tense activity. Captain Foster stood at the central console, his face grim as he studied incoming data. Admiral Thorne and Commander Reed were beside him, their expressions equally serious. "Report," Wilson said as he took his station. "Intelligence Officer Reyes decoded a transmission from the Void Command Network," Foster replied without looking up. "The Void Supreme Commander has ordered their entire armada to regroup for a single massive strike." Wilson's blood ran cold. "What's the target?" Admiral Thorne turned to face him. "Earth." The word hung in the air like a physical weight. Earth, home to 12 billion humans, the cradle of their civilization, now in the crosshairs of an enemy that destroyed planets for energy. "How?" Wilson asked. "They couldn't have had time to reach our solar system." "They haven't," Reed explained, "but Intelligence Officer Reyes discovered they've been analyzing our communication signals. They've pinpointed Earth's location and dispatched their main fleet. Based on their warp signatures, they'll reach our solar system in approximately 48 hours. Thorne's weathered face showed rare emotion. "We've drawn their attention away from the Lumari, directly to our homeworld." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Their mission to protect the Lumari had put Earth itself at risk. Foster straightened his uniform, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Admiral, I request permission to take the Thunderbolt and any ships that can be spared back to Earth immediately." "Granted," Thorne replied without hesitation. "I'll remain here with a skeleton force to protect our gains and coordinate with our new allies." He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "This is what we prepared for. This is why Earth maintained a defense fleet even in times of peace. Because we always knew that someday, somewhere in the vastness of space, we would face a threat to our very existence." The Thunderbolt's engines were pushed beyond safety limits as Captain Foster led 35 ships back toward Earth. The journey would normally take 5 days at maximum warp, but Engineer Davis had worked with Lumari scientists to modify the engines, shaving precious hours off their travel time. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Laura Banks prepared for casualties while monitoring the condition of the Lumari volunteers who had insisted on joining the Earth defense mission. The lower gravity and higher oxygen levels aboard the human ships had already taken a toll on their delicate physiology. "You should remain in your quarters," she told Varen, who had become the unofficial leader of the Lumari contingent. "Your body isn't adapted for the stress of combat conditions." Varen's luminescent skin pulsed with determination. "My people watched from safety while yours fought our battles. I will not hide while your world faces danger because of us." Dr. Banks couldn't argue with his logic, though she worried about the Lumari's physical fragility. As the fleet raced toward Earth, Intelligence Officer Reyes continued to monitor Void communications. 6 hours into their journey, her face paled as she decoded a new transmission. "Captain," she reported to Foster, "the Void fleet has accelerated beyond our projections. They've developed some kind of new drive technology. They'll reach Earth in less than 24 hours, well before we can get there." Foster immediately ordered a ship-wide announcement. "All hands, this is the captain. The situation has changed. Earth will face the initial Void assault without us. Our mission remains the same. Reach home as quickly as possible and join the defense. Every minute counts. Foster out." In the engine room, Engineer Davis pushed the modified systems beyond their design limitations. "The warp core is running 20% above safety parameters," he reported through the comm system. "I can give you maybe another 2%, but after that we risk a cascade failure." "Do it," Foster ordered without hesitation. Throughout the ship, crew members worked with grim determination. Some recorded messages for families on Earth, storing them in the ship's database in case they didn't survive the coming battle. Others checked and rechecked weapons systems and damage control protocols. Lieutenant Wilson spent hours in the tactical simulator, running battle scenarios against the projected Void fleet. Each simulation ended the same way, with Earth's defenses overwhelmed and the planet vulnerable to the Void's planet-killing weapons. "There has to be a way," he muttered, running the simulation for the 12th time. Commander Reed found him there, exhausted but still working. "Any breakthroughs?" she asked. Wilson shook his head. "Their numbers are too great. Earth's orbital defenses weren't designed to repel this kind of force." Reed studied the simulation. What if we don't try to win conventionally? What if we target their command structure instead? Together, they developed a desperate plan. When they presented it to Captain Foster, his expression grew even more somber. This would require a ship to deliberately ram the Void flagship, he noted. A suicide mission? Yes, sir, Wilson admitted. But if it works, it could throw their entire fleet into disarray. Foster didn't reject the plan. In the face of Earth's destruction, no option could be dismissed. We'll keep it as a last resort, he decided. 20 hours later, the Thunderbolt and its battle group dropped out of warp at the edge of the solar system. The scene before them was chaos. Earth's defensive fleet, smaller and less experienced than the forces that had been deployed to Lumari space, was engaged in a desperate battle against over 100 Void vessels. The orbital defense platforms around Earth flashed continuously as they fired, but several had already gone dark. Status of Earth's defenses? Foster demanded. Orbital platforms at 40% capacity, Wilson reported. The home fleet has suffered approximately 60% casualties. He paused, checking another reading. Sir, civilian evacuation protocols are in effect. They're moving people into underground shelters. Foster's jaw tightened. All ships, engage the enemy. Priority targets are Void vessels approaching Earth's atmosphere. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The Thunderbolt led the charge, cutting through the Void formation with weapons blazing. Other human ships followed, targeting the Void vessels that had broken through Earth's defensive perimeter. On Earth's surface, billions of humans watched the battle unfold in the skies above them. News broadcasts showed real-time footage of the human fleet engaging the alien invaders. In cities around the world, civilians rushed to designated shelters, while military reserves mobilized with remarkable speed. The planet's response is incredible, Reed noted, watching data streams from the surface. Civilian defense units are activating worldwide. Foster nodded grimly. Humans have always been at our best when facing extinction. Despite the reinforcements, the battle was not going well. More Void ships continued to arrive, and the massive Void flagship, nearly twice the size of the Thunderbolt, remained untouched, coordinating the assault from a distance. Captain, Wilson said quietly, I think it's time for our last resort. Foster looked around the bridge at his crew, men and women he had served with for years. They all knew what was at stake. Prepare the Thunderbolt for ramming speed, he ordered, all non-essential personnel to escape pods. As the evacuation began, Varen approached Foster on the bridge. Your ship is going to sacrifice itself, Lumari said. It wasn't a question. Foster nodded. There's no other way to stop their flagship. Varen's skin pulsed with emotion. My people have watched yours fight and die for us. Allow me to offer something in return. He held out a small crystalline device. This contains Lumari phase shift technology. It could allow your ship to bypass the outer defenses of the Void flagship and strike directly at its core. Engineer, Davis examined the device with wide eyes. This could work. It would give us a straight shot to their command center. With renewed hope, Foster ordered the implementation of the modified plan. The Thunderbolt would still make the suicide run, but with a much higher chance of success. As the massive human warship accelerated toward the Void flagship, the rest of the fleet provided covering fire, drawing enemy attacks away from the Thunderbolt. The ship shuddered under repeated hits, systems failing across all decks, but Foster kept it on course. Lumari phase shift technology activated, Davis reported from engineering. 10 seconds to impact. Foster looked around at the skeleton crew, who had volunteered to remain. It has been an honor, he said simply. The Thunderbolt disappeared in a flash of light as the phase shift engaged, reappearing inside the Void flagship's defensive perimeter. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships erupted in a massive explosion that temporarily blinded sensors across the battlefield. When the light faded, the Void flagship was breaking apart, secondary explosions rippling along. The message arrived at Earth Central Command on a quiet Tuesday morning. Admiral Tom Reed sat at his desk, reviewing reports from the outer colonies when his communications officer burst through the door. "Sir, we've received a transmission. It's not from any human settlement." Reed looked up, his weathered face showing little emotion despite the gravity of the news. Humanity had made contact with other intelligent species before, but direct communications remained rare. He extended his hand for the datapad. "Let's see it, Officer Davis." The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of pulses that quickly translated into a universal mathematical language. Reed's eyes widened as he understood. This wasn't just alien communication, it was a distress call. "Get me the security." "Council," he ordered, already rising from his chair. "And notify our xenolinguistics team. I want a full translation within the hour." 3 hours later, Reed stood before the 12 members of Earth's Security Council. The room was silent as the final pieces of the message played across the large display screen. "The signal originated from the Luminari Federation," Reed explained, pointing to a star map. "They're a peaceful species we've had limited contact with through our deep space probes. Their civilization spans 17 star systems in what we call the Vega sector." Counselor James leaned forward. "And they're under attack?" Reed nodded. "By something they call the Void Armada. From what we can translate, this armada has already destroyed 3 of their colony worlds." "This isn't our fight," Counselor Wilson said firmly. "We have our own borders to protect. The Mars colonies are still recovering from the resource riots." Reed had expected this response. Earth had only recently unified after centuries of conflict, and many were hesitant to involve humanity in alien wars. But he also knew something the peaceful Luminari didn't. Humans were uniquely qualified for combat. "The Luminari have no concept of warfare," Reed explained. "Their society evolved without the pressures that shaped human history. They have no standing armies, no weapons. They're being slaughtered." "All the more reason not to get involved," Wilson countered. "If we send ships, we risk bringing this Void Armada to our doorstep." Reed straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "With respect, Counselor, they will come eventually. Better to meet them on our terms, with allies at our side." He paused, looking at each council member in turn. "And consider this. Humanity has spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. It's not something we're proud of, but it's something we're good at." The council chamber fell silent as his words sank in. "We're from what scientists classify as a death world, high gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators. We evolved to survive conditions that would kill most intelligent species in the galaxy. The Luminari come from a world with 1/3 our gravity and no predatory species larger than an Earth rabbit." Reed tapped his console, bringing up images of the Luminari, tall, slender beings with almost translucent skin that seemed to glow from within. "They need our help, and someday we might need theirs." The debate lasted for hours. Security concerns, resource allocation, the risk of escalation, all valid points. But in the end, the humanitarian argument won out. The council voted 7-5 to send aid. "The 7th Fleet will depart within 48 hours, Reed announced, already mentally preparing the massive undertaking. 20 ships, our most advanced vessels. But I'll need a ground force commander with actual combat experience." "Commander Jack Stone," suggested Counselor Martinez. "He led the peacekeeping mission during the Mars riots. Tough but fair. His troops respect him." Reed nodded. He knew Stone by reputation, a solid leader who made difficult decisions when necessary. Exactly what they needed. The next day, Commander Stone arrived at Reed's office. He was shorter than Reed expected, but his presence filled the room. His eyes carried the alertness of someone who had seen combat and lived to learn from it. "You wanted to see me, Admiral?" Reed gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Commander. How much do you know about extraterrestrial life?" Stone's expression remained neutral. "Only what was in basic training, sir. We share the galaxy with other intelligent species. Most keep to themselves. Until now." Reed activated a holographic display showing the Luminari distress signal. "I need someone to lead our ground forces for a rescue mission. Your name came highly recommended." As Reed explained the situation, Stone listened without interruption. When the Admiral finished, Stone asked only one question. What are we authorized to do if diplomacy fails? Reed appreciated the directness. Whatever it takes to protect the Luminary civilians, the Council has granted full tactical discretion. Stone nodded slowly. I'll need to select my own team. And I want the new M7 combat suits. They're still in testing, but they're the best we have. Done, Reed said without hesitation. You'll have whatever you need. Over the next 48 hours, Earth Central Command transformed into a hive of activity. Supply ships docked with the massive vessels of the 7th Fleet. Weapons systems were checked and rechecked. Medical bays were stocked with supplies for both human and luminary physiology. Commander Stone selected 100 of Earth's finest soldiers, veterans, who had proven themselves not just in combat, but in crisis management and peacekeeping operations. They would be the tip of the spear, the first humans to fight on alien soil. On the morning of departure, Admiral Reed addressed the assembled fleet crews from the bridge of the flagship Defender. You are about to embark on a mission unlike any in human history, he said, his voice carried to every ship in the fleet. We go not to conquer, not for resources or territory, but because someone asked for our help. The Luminary cannot fight this battle alone. They don't know how. He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. Humanity has a complicated history. We've fought countless wars among ourselves. We've caused great suffering, but we've also shown great compassion. Today we use the skills born from our troubled past to secure a peaceful future, not just for ourselves, but for our new allies. The fleet departed Earth's orbit in formation, engines glowing against the blackness of space. As the ships accelerated toward the jump point that would take them to the Vega sector, Reed stood at the viewport watching his home planet shrink behind them. Beside him, Commander Stone spoke quietly. Do you think we're doing the right thing, Admiral? Reed considered the question carefully before answering. I think we're doing the human thing, Commander. For better or worse, that's who we are. As the Earth disappeared from view, the fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives, vanishing in a flash of light. The Deathworlders were on their way. 2 weeks passed aboard the fleet as they traveled through the void between stars. The journey had been tense, with constant drills and preparation for what might await them. Commander Stone had run his ground teams through every possible scenario, while Admiral Reed coordinated with his ship captains on space combat tactics. On the 14th day, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of luminary space. A series of small planets orbited a distant blue star, with artificial structures visible even from this distance. All ships, maintain defensive formation, Reed ordered. Communications, broadcast the greeting message on all frequencies we received, from the Luminary distress call. On the bridge of the Defender, the crew waited in silence. This was humanity's first official diplomatic mission to an alien civilization in distress. The stakes couldn't be higher. Officer Davis looked up from her console. Sir, we're receiving a response. Visual communication request. Reed straightened his uniform. On screen. The main display flickered, and a figure appeared that made several crew members gasp. The Luminary representative stood nearly 7 feet tall, with limbs that seemed too long and delicate for its body. Its skin glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed gently as it moved. Most striking were its eyes, large, pupilless orbs that seemed to take in everything at once. Greetings, humans of Earth, the being said, its voice melodic and flowing. I am High Counselor Trell of the Luminary Federation. Your arrival brings hope to our people in our darkest hour. Reed stepped forward. High Counselor, I am Admiral Tom Reed of Earth's United Defense Force. We received your distress call and have come to offer assistance. Trell's skin brightened slightly, an emotional response, Reed guessed. We are grateful. The Void Armada has taken another colony since we sent our message. Our people have never faced such violence. The way Trell said the word suggested it was a foreign concept. We've brought diplomatic representatives as well as defensive forces, Reed explained. With your permission, we'd like to dock at your station to discuss how we can help. Of course, I will send coordinates. Please hurry. As the transmission ended, Reed turned to his second-in-command. Captain, prepare a shuttle. I want Commander Stone and Ambassador Wells with me for this meeting. 3 hours later, Reed's shuttle docked at the Luminary space station. The structure was unlike anything humans had built, curves and spirals of a transparent material that seemed to flow rather than connect. Light passed through the entire station, casting rainbow patterns across the surfaces. Ambassador Lisa Wells studied everything with barely contained excitement. A veteran diplomat, she had specialized in xenocultural relations, but this was her first direct contact mission. Remember, she said quietly to Reed and Stone, the Luminary evolved on a low-gravity world. Their physical contact is minimal, and they communicate partly through light patterns on their skin. Try not to make sudden movements. As the airlock opened, they were greeted by 3 Luminari. Their slender bodies moved with a grace that seemed almost like floating, and Stone noted how carefully they placed each step. High Counselor Trell approached and made a flowing gesture with long fingers. Welcome to Luminary Prime Station. These are my advisors, Menno and Pella. Wells returned the gesture perfectly, having studied Luminary customs. Thank you for receiving us. I am Ambassador Lisa Wells. This is Admiral Reed and Commander Stone. The Luminari led them through corridors where other members of their species stopped to watch the humans pass. Their evident curiosity was matched only by what appeared to be apprehension, ripples of darker blue passing across their luminescent skin. They've never seen beings like us, Wells whispered. Their only other contact has been with species similar to themselves. They arrived at a circular chamber where a holographic display showed star systems and moving objects that Reed immediately recognized as fleet positions. The Luminari might be peaceful, but their technology was impressive. This is our current situation, Trell explained, gesturing to the display. Red markers indicated Void Armada positions, steadily advancing through Luminari territory. They came without warning or provocation. 3 colony worlds destroyed, millions of lives lost. Why? Stone asked bluntly. What do they want? Pela, one of Trell's advisors, answered. Resources. Our worlds are rich in elements they consume for their technology. They take what they want and leave nothing behind. Reed studied the tactical display with growing concern. The Void Armada outnumbered his fleet significantly. Tell us about their capabilities. Their ships are heavily armored. They use energy weapons that can cut through our civilian vessels instantly. Trell's skin dimmed as he spoke. We have no defense against them. The Luminari abandoned warfare thousands of years ago. Have you tried communicating with them? Wells asked. They respond only with demands for surrender, Menno said. They see no value in our culture or knowledge, only our worlds. While the diplomats continued talking, Commander Stone moved closer to the display, examining the enemy positions with a tactician's eye. He noticed patterns in their deployment. Predictable, methodical. They had never needed to be creative because they'd never faced real resistance. Admiral, Stone called. I think I see an opportunity here. Reed joined him at the display. What do you see, Commander? They're disciplined but rigid. All their attacks follow the same pattern. Stone pointed to several key positions. They've never fought humans. They don't know what we're capable of. Reed nodded, understanding the implication. And they've certainly never fought anyone from a high-gravity world with our combat experience. A commotion at the entrance interrupted them as a Luminari rushed, in skin flashing with urgent patterns of light. High Counselor, our scout ships have returned from Lumina 7. They bring images of the attack. The holographic display changed to show footage that made even the battle-hardened humans pause. Miss Avon. Black ships moved through space like predators, methodically destroying everything in their path. The Void Armada vessels were angular and sharp, their surfaces absorbing rather than reflecting light. On the surface of a beautiful green planet, black armored figures moved through Luminari settlements. They were bulky compared to the slender Luminari, with multiple limbs and what appeared to be breathing apparatus. The footage showed them rounding up civilians with cold efficiency. Stone's expression hardened. They're taking prisoners. Forced labor, Trell confirmed, his voice hollow. To mine the resources they seek. Reed turned to face the High Counselor, his decision made. We'll need to coordinate our forces immediately. Commander Stone will need details on Lumina 7's environment and layout. Ambassador Wells will establish formal protocols between our forces. What are you planning? Trell asked. Reed's expression was grim but determined. We're going to show the Void Armada something they've never seen before, humans at war. As the meeting continued into the night, scout ships brought more intelligence about enemy positions. The human officers studied everything, identifying weaknesses and opportunities. The Luminari watched with a mixture of hope and apprehension as these strange beings from a world they could barely survive on calmly planned battle strategies with professional detachment. They will attack Lumina 7 next, Trell said, pointing to a beautiful blue-green world on the display. It is our most populated colony after the homeworld. Reed nodded. Then that's where we'll make our stand. Commander Stone will lead the ground forces while our fleet engages their ships. As they finalized their plans, a Luminari scientist approached Stone cautiously. Commander, our records indicate your species evolved on what we would classify as an extreme environment. Is this true? Stone nodded. Earth has higher gravity, denser atmosphere, and more extreme temperature variations than your worlds. We evolved to survive there. The scientist's skin pulsed with patterns of light that translated as something like amazement. Then the Void Armada has never encountered anything like you. No, Stone replied, his expression grim but confident. They haven't. Dawn broke over Lumina 7, casting purple shadows across the gleaming spires of its capital city. The planet was a jewel, oceans of deep turquoise surrounding continents covered in vegetation that shimmered with bioluminescence. Under different circumstances, it would have been a paradise for the human forces now taking positions around the main settlement. Commander Stone crouched behind a barricade, his M7 combat suit humming quietly as its systems adjusted to the local environment. Around him, his soldiers were completing final weapons checks. The gravity here was only 0.7 of Earth standard, a fact his troops were quickly learning to use to their advantage. Remember, Stone said over the tactical channel, the Void Forces have never fought humans before. They don't know our capabilities or tactics. Use that surprise. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Bell, checked her scanner. Sir, Luminari sensors are picking up approach vectors. The Void Armada will enter the atmosphere in approximately 10 minutes. Stone nodded. All units, confirm positions. One by one, his squad leaders reported in. 100 human soldiers against what intelligence suggested would be at least 500 Void troops. The odds weren't great, but humans had a long history of overcoming bad odds. High above, Admiral Reed watched from the bridge of the Defender as the Void Armada approached. 20 black ships, angular and predatory, moving in perfect formation. They're confident, Reed observed. Too confident. Sir, his tactical officer reported, they're not adjusting their approach even after detecting our presence. Reed smiled grimly. They don't consider us a threat. Let's change their minds. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha. The human fleet suddenly broke formation, ships moving in seemingly chaotic patterns that made no sense to conventional space tactics. The Void Armada continued their straight-line approach, clearly confused by the unpredictable movements of the smaller human vessels. Firing solutions locked, the weapons officer announced. Reed leaned forward. Fire. The Defender unleashed its main cannons, followed by the rest of the fleet. Energy beams sliced through space, striking the lead Void ship at precisely calculated weak points. Explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum as the Void vessel's engines failed. On the Void command ship, General Draz watched with growing rage as the human vessels darted around his fleet, striking and retreating before his gunners could lock on. What is this? He demanded, his four eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of agitation in his species. These are not luminary ships. Who dares interfere? His intelligence officer brought up data on the unknown vessels. They appear to be from a distant system, General, a world called Earth. Their ships are smaller than ours with inferior armor. Then destroy them, Draz roared. They are insects compared to the might of the Void Armada. But the insects proved remarkably difficult to swat. The human ships moved in ways that defied standard combat algorithms, accelerating and turning, at rates that would have killed most species due to G-forces. What the Void Forces didn't know was that humans had evolved on a high-gravity world and had designed their ships to withstand pressures that would crush most other intelligent life forms. On the surface of Lumina 7, Commander Stone watched the first Void landing crafts descend through the atmosphere. They touched down in the main plaza of the Luminary city, heavy doors sliding open to reveal troops in black armor. The Void soldiers moved with mechanical precision, weapons raised as they secured the landing zone. Their bodies were stockier than humans with 4 arms and a reinforced exoskeleton. They advanced methodically, clearly expecting little resistance. Hold positions, Stone ordered. Wait for them to spread out. The Void forces began separating into squads, moving through the empty streets. They had never encountered organized resistance on luminary worlds before, and their formation showed it. No rear guards, minimal cover checks, overextended lines. Stone waited until the enemy was fully committed. All units, execute. Human soldiers rose from hidden positions, using the lower gravity to make jumps that would have been impossible on Earth. They landed behind Void troops, who turned in confusion at this unexpected attack. The first volleys of fire dropped dozens of Void soldiers before they could properly respond. What are these creatures? A Void squad leader transmitted as humans bounded across open spaces, covering distances that seemed impossible. The Void. Commander had no answer. His troops had conquered 3 luminary worlds without significant resistance. The slender, light-sensitive aliens had always fled or surrendered quickly. These new beings fought differently, aggressively, unpredictably, effectively. At the Luminary Evacuation Center, a group of civilians watched in amazement as human soldiers engaged the Void forces. A luminary scientist named Ren observed the battle alongside a human medical officer who was treating wounded civilians. "Your soldiers move so quickly," Ren said, his skin pulsing with patterns of astonishment. "And they withstand injuries that would kill a luminary instantly." The medic nodded as she applied a bandage to a luminary child's arm. "Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a dangerous world. Our bodies can take a lot of punishment and keep going." Outside, the battle intensified. The Void forces, recovering from their initial surprise, were regrouping. Their superior numbers were beginning to tell as they coordinated their attacks against the human positions. Stone received reports from all fronts. His troops had inflicted heavy casualties, but they were being pushed back toward the evacuation center. The Void commander had adapted more quickly than expected. "Squad 3, fall back to position Echo," Stone ordered. "Squad 1 and 2, prepare for flanking maneuver." Lieutenant Bell slid into cover beside him, her armor showing scorch marks from enemy fire. "Sir, they've called in reinforcements. 2. More landing crafts approaching from the north." Stone checked his tactical display. The situation was deteriorating. "Contact the Defender. We need air support." Above the planet, the space battle had reached a critical phase. 3 Void ships had been disabled, but the human fleet was taking damage. The Defender's shields were at 40% after a direct hit from the Void flagship. "Admiral," the communications officer called. "We're receiving a priority message from Commander Stone. They're requesting air support." Reed studied the tactical display. Most of his ships were engaged with Void vessels, but the frigate Intrepid had just disabled its target. "Order the Intrepid to break off and provide ground support. All other ships concentrate fire on the Void flagship." On the surface, Stone heard the welcome sound of the Intrepid's engines as it descended through the atmosphere. The frigate's weapons systems locked onto the incoming Void reinforcements, destroying one landing craft and forcing the other to veer away. "All units, this is our opening," Stone called. "Push forward." The human soldiers surged from their positions, using the lower gravity to make impossible leaps onto rooftops and over barriers. The Void troops, confused by the aerial attack and the renewed ground assault, began to fall back. In the Void command ship, General Draz received the disturbing reports. His forces, never before challenged, were retreating. These human creatures fought with a ferocity and skill he had never encountered. "Order all forces to withdraw," he commanded reluctantly. "We will regroup and analyze these new enemies." On Lumina 7, Stone watched as the remaining Void troops hurried back to their landing crafts. The plaza, which hours earlier had been under enemy control, was now littered with abandoned Void equipment and the bodies of their fallen. "All units secure the perimeter," Stone ordered. "Medics, attend to the wounded." As the human soldiers moved through the city, the Luminari civilians emerged from shelters, their skin glowing with patterns of relief and gratitude. They approached the human troops cautiously, clearly amazed by these strange beings who had fought off the invaders. In the evacuation center, Wren approached Commander Stone. "You saved our city," the scientist said, luminescent patterns flowing across his skin. "We have never seen combat like this." Stone removed his helmet, revealing a face streaked with sweat and dirt. "This was just the first battle," he replied. "The Void Armada will be back, and next time they'll be ready for us." "Then we must be ready as well," Wren said with determination. "Perhaps there are ways we can help that do not require us to become warriors ourselves." Stone nodded, understanding what the peaceful alien was offering. "Together we might just have a chance." Above them, the stars were becoming visible as night fell on Lumina 7. Somewhere up there, the Void Armada was regrouping, but for now at least, the Deathworlders had shown them something new. That not all species in the galaxy were easy prey. 3 days after the Battle of Lumina 7, Admiral Reed stood before a holographic display showing the positions of both fleets. The Void Armada had pulled back to the edge of the system, but sensors indicated they were gathering reinforcements. What had begun as 20 enemy vessels had grown to 35. "They're preparing for a full-scale assault," Reed told his ship captains during the strategy meeting. "Our victory at Lumina 7 embarrassed them. Now they want to crush us completely." The human fleet, by contrast, had 13 fully operational ships. 5 others were undergoing emergency repairs in orbit around Lumina 7, where Luminari engineers worked alongside human technicians. "We're outnumbered almost 3-1, Captain Morgan of the frigate Intrepid pointed out. "Even with our superior tactics, those aren't good odds." Reed nodded grimly. "Which is why we need something more than tactics. We need a game changer." On the surface of Lumina 7, Commander Stone was thinking along similar lines. He stood in what had once been a Luminari research facility, now converted into a joint military command center. Around him, human soldiers worked with Luminari scientists, an unlikely partnership born of necessity. Wren, the Luminari scientist who had observed the first battle, approached Stone with a data tablet. "Commander, we've analyzed the Void technology captured during the battle. I believe we've found something interesting." Stone studied the information. The Luminari might be pacifists, but they were brilliant scientists. Their analysis showed that the Void forces relied heavily on a specific communication frequency to coordinate their attacks. "Can we disrupt this?" Stone asked. Wren's skin pulsed with patterns that Stone had learned meant excitement. "Better. We can use it against them, but we would need to get a transmitter close to their command ship." Stone immediately contacted Admiral Reed. Within an hour, they had developed the framework of a plan, one that might just give them a fighting chance against the overwhelming Void forces. Reed called a meeting with High Counselor Trell and the other Luminari leaders. "What we're proposing is risky," he explained, "but it may be our only chance to defeat the Void Armada before they launch their main attack." Trell's skin flickered with concern. "What do you need from us?" "Your scientists have developed technology that can interface with the Void communication systems," Reed said. "We need to combine that with our stealth capabilities to get close enough to use it." "But our technology was never designed for warfare," another counselor objected. Stone stepped forward. "It doesn't have to be. Your sensors, Your communication. Arrays. They were built for peaceful purposes, but we can adapt them. He looked at the council members. This is what humans are good at. We take what's available and find new ways to use it. After hours of debate, the Luminari agreed. For the next 2 days, human and Luminari teams worked without rest. Luminari communication technology was integrated into human combat systems. Stealth modules were attached to Luminari sensor arrays. The result was something neither species could have created alone. Meanwhile, the Void Armada continued to gather strength. General Draz had been summoned before the Void High Command to explain his failure at Lumina 7. These humans are dangerous, Draz reported. They fight unlike any species we have encountered. They are merely animals from a heavy world, the Supreme Commander dismissed. Bring our full force to bear and crush them, along with their Luminari allies. Draz returned to his flagship determined to redeem himself. He ordered all ships to prepare for a massive assault that would overwhelm the human fleet through sheer numbers. What he didn't know was that Admiral Reed had anticipated this response. As the Void Armada began to move, Reed put his daring plan into action. All ships execute Operation Trojan, Reed ordered from the bridge of the Defender. Decoy force, move into position. 5 human ships broke from the defensive formation around Lumina 7, appearing to make a desperate attack against the approaching Void fleet. The remaining vessels powered down to minimal systems, becoming nearly invisible to Void sensors. General. Draz watched the approaching human ships with satisfaction. They are desperate, he told his officers. They send a suicide mission rather than wait for defeat. The Void ships moved to intercept the small human force, weapons charging. What they failed to notice was the rest of the human fleet using Luminari stealth technology to slip behind their lines. On the bridge of the Defender, Reed watched the tactical display with tense concentration. Everything depended on timing now. Sir, his communications officer reported. Commander Stone's team is in position. Stone and a small strike force had boarded a modified shuttle equipped with the hybrid human Luminari technology. Using the battle as cover, they had approached the rear of the Void formation. Execute Phase 2, Reed ordered. Suddenly, the 5 human ships that had appeared to be attacking broke off in different directions, confusing the Void gunners. At the same time, the rest of the human fleet powered up systems and began targeting the rear of the Void formation. Caught between forces, the Void ships tried to reorganize, but at that critical moment, Commander Stone's team activated their secret weapon. The device created by Luminari scientists interfaced with the Void communication frequency, injecting false commands and scrambling authentic ones. Across the Void fleet, systems malfunctioned. Ships received contradictory orders. Some weapon systems shut down entirely. What is happening? General Draz demanded as his command console displayed nonsensical information. Restore communications, but the damage was done. The carefully coordinated Void formation dissolved into chaos as ships lost contact with each other and received phantom enemy locations. Reed seized the advantage. All ships, target the designated weak points. Fire at will. The human vessels, struck with precision, focusing on engine systems and weapon arrays. Without their usual coordination, the Void ships couldn't mount an effective defense. One by one, they began to fall. On the shuttle, Stone and his team monitored the effect of their device. It's working better than we expected, a technician reported. Their entire command structure is collapsing. Stone nodded with grim satisfaction. Keep the disruption going as long as possible. Back on the Defender, Reed saw an opportunity to deliver a decisive blow. The Void flagship had been identified and was struggling to restore order to its forces. All ships focus fire on the Void flagship, Reed ordered. We cut off the head, the body falls. But the flagship was at the center of the Void formation, protected by layers of supporting vessels. To reach it would require breaking through those defenses. Reed made a decision that would later be studied in military academies across Earth. This is Admiral Reed. I am taking the Defender into the heart of their formation. All other ships, provide covering fire. His officers looked at him in shock. Sir, that's too risky. His second-in-command protested. It's the only way to create an opening for our other ships, Reed replied calmly. Helm, plot the course. Full power to forward shields. The Defender surged forward, accelerating directly toward the wall of void vessels. Enemy fire concentrated on the human flagship as it plunged deeper into their formation. The ship shuddered under repeated impacts. Shields at 30%, an officer reported. 20%. Systems failing across decks 5 through 8. Reed held onto his chair as the ship rocked from another hit. Stay on course. The Defender pushed through, its hull scoring and burning, but it created the gap Reed had promised. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet poured fire into the opening, striking directly at the Void flagship. General Draz watched in horror as human ships broke through his defenses. This is impossible, he growled. They're sacrificing their lead ship to reach us. The bridge of his vessel shook as direct hits landed. Systems failed across the massive ship as human weapons found their targets. In a final, desperate move, Draz ordered all power to the engines. We must retreat, he commanded. The humans have won this day, but the Void Armada will return. Across the battlefield, Void ships began to disengage, jumping to faster-than-light speeds in a disorganized retreat. For the first time in generations, the Void Armada had been defeated. On the Defender, Admiral Reed was helped from his chair as emergency teams fought to contain fires across the damaged vessel. Despite his injuries, he smiled as reports came. In, sir, his communications officer reported. The Void fleet is retreating. Commander Stone's team is returning safely. We've done it. Reed nodded, wincing at the pain from what was likely several broken ribs. Not just us, he said. We couldn't have done this without the Luminari. This victory belongs to both our peoples. As the human fleet regrouped, the stars beyond seemed a little brighter. The battle had been won, but Reed knew the war was far from over. The Void would return, stronger and wiser. But when they did, they would find that the alliance between humans and Luminari had grown stronger as well. And perhaps, out there in the darkness between stars, other species were taking. Note, the Deathworlders had arrived on the Galactic stage and they were a force to be reckoned with. The great hall of the Luminari High Council glowed with soft blue light as dignitaries from both species gathered for the ceremony. 2 weeks had passed since the decisive battle that drove the Void Armada from Luminari space. It was a time for healing, rebuilding, and looking toward the future. Admiral Reed entered slowly, still recovering from his injuries. The medical team had wanted him to use a hover chair, but he had insisted on walking. Pride, perhaps, or simply the desire to show strength before their new allies. Commander Stone walked beside him, along with the captains of the human fleet. High Counselor Trell approached, his tall, slender form moving with the fluid grace characteristic of his species. Around him, other luminary counselors formed a half-circle, their skin glowing with patterns that express solemn respect. Admiral Reed, Commander Stone, brave warriors of Earth, Trell began, his melodic voice carrying throughout the hall. We gather today to honor the alliance that saved our people from destruction. The hall was filled with both Luminari civilians and human soldiers. The contrast between them was striking. The tall, delicate Luminari with their luminescent skin, beside the shorter, more solid humans with their varied complexions and sturdy builds. Two species from vastly different worlds brought together by circumstance. When we sent our distress call into the void, Trell continued, we did not know who might answer. We could not have imagined that help would come from beings so different from ourselves, yet so willing to risk their lives for strangers. Reed stepped forward when Trell gestured for him to speak. The Admiral looked tired but determined, his uniform freshly pressed despite the sling supporting his left arm. High Counselor, esteemed members of the Luminary Federation, Reed began. We came to your aid because it was the right thing to do. On Earth we have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We could not stand by while the Void Armada threatened your civilization. A ripple of light patterns passed through the assembled Luminari, their equivalent of applause. The human soldiers stood at attention, pride evident on their faces despite their fatigue. Many still bore bandages or healing injuries from the battle. Trell raised his long arms, and two luminary assistants brought forward a crystalline sculpture that seemed to capture light and transform it into flowing patterns. "This is the stellar harmony, our highest honor," Trell explained. "It has never before been given to non-luminary. Today we present it to the people of Earth, our friends from the death world who brought life instead of death." Reed accepted the sculpture carefully. As his hands touched it, the crystal responded, its patterns shifting to match his heartbeat. The crowd of luminari made sounds of appreciation. Such a response from the crystal was considered a good omen. "Thank you," Reed said simply. "But our work is not finished. The Void Armada will return, perhaps with greater numbers. We must prepare." Trell's skin dimmed slightly, a sign of concern. "We are not warriors, Admiral. Our society abandoned violence thousands of years ago, and we wouldn't ask you to change that," Reed assured him. "But there are many ways to defend yourselves without becoming warriors." Later that day, Reed met with the Luminary Council in their private chambers to discuss his proposal. Commander Stone and Ambassador Wells accompanied him, along with the luminary scientist Wren, who had become a crucial link between the two species. "What I am proposing," Reed explained, "is a formal defense alliance between Earth and the Luminary Federation. Our ships would help patrol your borders. Your scientists would continue to work with our engineers to develop defensive technologies that align with your values." The council members exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting in silent communication. "And what would Earth gain from this arrangement?" one counselor asked. "Knowledge," Reed replied honestly. "Your understanding of propulsion technology, energy systems, and medicine far exceeds ours in many areas. We could learn from each other." Ambassador Wells stepped forward. "This wouldn't be charity on either side. It would be a true partnership between civilizations with different strengths." While the council deliberated, Commander Stone took a team of volunteers to the training grounds established outside the capital city. There, a group of luminari had gathered, not to become soldiers, but to learn self-defense. "The goal isn't to make you into warriors," Stone explained to the assembled luminari. "It's to give you options besides surrender if you're ever threatened again." The luminari moved awkwardly at first, their tall bodies and light bones not built for Earth-style combat. But they learned quickly, adapting the techniques to suit their physiology. Where they lacked strength, they used their height and reach. Where they lacked endurance, they developed quick, efficient movements. Wren, who had been the first to volunteer, demonstrated a defensive maneuver for the others. "We cannot match the humans' physical capabilities," he told his fellow luminari, "but we can use their knowledge in our own way." Stone watched with approval. These weren't warriors being born. They were civilians learning to protect themselves and their loved ones. There was honor in that. Back in the council chambers, the luminari had reached their decision. High Counselor Trell's skin glowed brightly as he addressed Admiral Reed. "We accept your proposal, Admiral. The Luminary Federation will form a defense alliance with Earth. Our peoples will work together to ensure peace and security for both our worlds." Reed nodded, relieved. "Thank you, High Counselor. I believe this marks the beginning of a new chapter for both our species." The agreement was formalized the next day in a public ceremony. As the details were announced, a sense of hope spread through the gathered crowds. The luminari, who had faced extinction just weeks before, now had powerful allies. The humans, who had traveled across the stars to aid strangers, had found friends in return. As the ceremony concluded, Reed received an urgent communication from Earth. The Security Council had reviewed his reports and approved the alliance. Additional ships would be dispatched to establish a permanent human presence in luminary space. "It seems your government agrees with our decision," Trell observed as Reed shared the news. "They do," Reed confirmed, "though I suspect some of them were more convinced by the technological benefits than the moral argument." Trell's skin pulsed with what Reed had learned was amusement. "Perhaps that is true of some of my council as well. But the best alliances are those where both sides gain something of value." As the Earth ships prepared to depart, leaving behind a small defensive force, Commander Stone oversaw the loading of supplies. Lieutenant Bell approached with a datapad. "Sir, we've intercepted a long-range transmission," she reported. "It appears to be from the Void Armada to their homeworld." Stone took the pad and studied the partially decoded message. Though much was still unclear, certain phrases stood out. Unexpected resistance, high-gravity species, and most notably, Deathworlders. "They're talking about us," Stone realized. "They're warning their leaders about humans." Reed reviewed the message later in his quarters aboard the Defender. The ship had been repaired enough for the journey home, though scars from the battle remained visible on its hull. "So we've made an impression," Reed said, handing the pad back to Stone. "Good. Perhaps they'll think twice before attacking again. Or they'll come back with a larger force," Stone pointed out. "We may have just announced humanity's presence to the wider galaxy in a very dramatic way." Reed nodded, understanding the implications. Earth had lived in relative isolation until now, with only limited contact with other spacefaring species. That was likely to change. "Then we'd better be ready," Reed said. "And not just militarily. We need to show the galaxy that humans can be builders and peacekeepers too, not just warriors." As the fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, for the journey home, Reed stood at the viewport of the Defender. Below, Lumina 7 gleamed like a jewel against the blackness of space. In orbit, human and luminary ships moved in coordinated patterns, the beginnings of a joint defense force. Reed thought about the message the Void had sent. Beware the Deathworlders. It wasn't how he would have chosen to introduce humanity to the galactic community, but perhaps there was wisdom in it. The galaxy would learn that humans would fight fiercely when necessary, but they would also extend a hand in friendship to those in need. As the stars blurred into streaks of light, Reed smiled. This was just the beginning. Humanity had taken its first true steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors, but as defenders. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them with the same determination that had carried them from their death world to the stars. The Luminary had sent an SOS, and the Deathworlders had sent a fleet of war. But what they had built together was something greater: hope for a future where different species could stand together against the darkness.